The Diamond Heels failed to make it back to the Super Regional in 2023. But don't you worry, because superstar Vance Honeycutt is back for his junior season. Now, he had a bit of a sophomore slump, only hitting .257, but he is still one of the most versatile players in college baseball. At the plate, he is the definition of a big hitter. He has hit 37 home runs in 2 seasons. He uses his combination of hip rotation, bat speed, and power to send souvenirs out of Boshamer Stadium. But the thing that makes Honeycutt different is he is just as dynamic as a fielder. The reigning ACC Defensive Player of the Year is a ball hawk in center field, and here's why. Bottom of the 7th versus Pitt with a 2-2 count. Justin McCall drives the ball to deep center field, but Honeycutt reaches over the wall and brings it back in for the home run robbery. After sprinting back to the center field wall, Honeycutt does a great job tracking the ball and timing his jump perfectly to snag the ball out of thin air. Honeycutt is electric. He's a SportsCenter top 10 play waiting to happen. And if the Diamond Heels are going to make another deep tournament run, it's going to be led by the bat and the glove of number 7. Ashley?
Caroline, we know Honeycutt is a difference maker for the Heels, but what else should the fans be looking out for this season?
We know the offense is still going to be great, but I'm concerned about the pitching. One of their pitchers from last season, Max Carlson, was drafted by the Boston Red Sox and pitches for their minor league team, the FCL Red Sox now. So the Heels rotation might struggle to open games early on in the season until they find their new ace.
Thanks, Caroline. The Heels open their season against Wagner at the Bosch.
Diamond Heels showed out this weekend at the Bosch. The bats were on fire. The Heels scored a total of 46 runs this weekend compared to Wagner's 14. The Heels newcomers have already made an impact. In the opening day game on Friday, the newcomers had 7 out of the 11 hits. One transfer who made an impression was Parks Harbor. Harbor was 3 for 4 with an RBI in the 7th inning to score Vance Honeycutt and help put the game away for the Heels. Then in the second game, in the bottom of the 6th, the Heels hadn't scored since the 2nd inning, and they were tied with the Seahawks 5-5. Harbor sparked the offense again with this triple to bring in Casey Cook for a run and help give the Heels the lead again. While Harbor is skilled using the bat, he's also skilled using his glove. On Saturday, Seahawks outfielder Henry Martinez, he hits the ball toward the first baseline. And Harbor right here, he's going to extend his body to make this amazing snag to give the Heels their 2nd out of the inning. It looks like Harbor is going to be a great addition to the Heels roster this season after they lost some key players like Mac Horvath in the draft this past year. Caroline?
Well, Caroline, you mentioned there were a lot of newcomers this weekend on the hitting side. Who else, aside from Harbor, showed out in your opinion this weekend?
Graduate transfer Anthony D'Onofrio had 2 RBIs per game on both Friday and Saturday. So it looks like he'll be able to help the Heels offense alongside Harbor.
Thanks, Caroline. I'm so excited to see what all these newcomers can do for the Diamond Heels when they face off against ECU this weekend.
After a back-and-forth weekend for the Heels and Pirates, both teams played an ugly game yesterday, as UNC used 8 pitchers yesterday to ECU's 9. Throughout the season, the Heels have scored 69 runs, but they've allowed 39 from their opponents. The team ERA right now is 4.62. Some pitchers even have ERAs in the 8s or 9s. With numbers like this, the Heels just can't stack up against quality competition. Let's take a look at yesterday's game to see exactly how the Pirates won. In the bottom of the 7th, the game is tied 5-5, and the Heels put in Connor Bovair, but first he's going to give up this fielder's choice to score a run and put ECU up by 1 run. But it gets even worse with the next at bat. His first pitch is an RBI single to score another run for ECU to put them up 7-5 in the game. Carolina came back to score 3 runs in the top of the 8th, but then in the bottom of the 8th, Matt Poston was put in for the Heels. In this at-bat, he has a 3-1 count, and he's going to give up this 2-run homer that goes high into right field to give ECU the lead once again, 9-8. The Heels tied the game in the top of the 9th, but then UNC put in their 8th pitcher, Ryan Fisher, and this is when disaster struck. The game was on the line. The Heels loaded the bases with an intentional walk, and then Bristol Carter from ECU comes up to bat. And on Fisher's 2nd pitch, he gives up this walk-off base hit for the Pirates to win the series. The Diamond Heels trailed for the majority of this game. They fought back, and they still couldn't come out with a win because of their disappointing pitching performance towards the end of this game. During the break, the Diamond Heels opened up ACC play against Pitt and Miami. The two series were drastically different. Against Pitt, the Heels did a great job capitalizing on their opportunities to finish out close games with runners in scoring position. In the first Pitt game, it's the bottom of the 8th with a 3-2 count. And Pitt's catcher, he's setting up low for the curveball, but the pitcher misses high, and that allows Osuna to barrel this ball for a sac fly with pinch runner Caleb Cost. He's on third. He's going to run home and score, making it 2-1. And this run ultimately won the game for the Heels. Then in the third game of the Pitt series, Casey Cook, he's on first base, and in this at-bat, Anthony D'Onofrio has a full count as well in the bottom of the 10th. Pitt's catcher, once again, he's setting up low, this time with a fastball that misses down the middle, and D'Onofrio rockets the ball to right field near the warning track. Cook is going to round third all the way from first to come home and score, making it 6-5 and ending it in a walk-off. Moving to the Miami series, in the top of the 9th, Caleb Cost, he's on second base in scoring position. But both Colby Wilkerson and Vance Honeycutt strike out as they swung at these low pitches, and this ultimately led to Miami getting a walk-off home run in the bottom of the 9th to win the series. That was one of their 9 runners that they stranded in scoring position during this game. UNC got back to playing like they did against Pitt in their last game of the Miami series yesterday. That type of play is the key to success for the Diamond Heels. Ashley?
Caroline, who are UNC's opponents coming up, and what are some of the challenges they might face?
The Heels are going to face off against UNC Wilmington tomorrow at the Bosch, but I think the more difficult opponent will be Georgia Tech this weekend. The Yellow Jackets have a record of 15-4, and they're undefeated in conference play. And they're coming off of a series sweep against the 13th-ranked NC State Wolfpack, with the last game ending in a mercy rule of 15-5.
We'll have to see how the Heels stack up against some quality competition. Thanks, Caroline.
The Diamond Heels are one of the hottest teams in college baseball right now. And against Wake Forest, they were led by the three-headed monster of Casey Cook, Parks Harbor, and Luke Stevenson. They did a great job hitting a variety of pitches over the wall. The first game was Casey let him Cook's game, hitting 2 of the team's 4 home runs. On this 3-2 count, Cook capitalizes on this fastball down the middle and crushes this ball to deep center field for the early 1-0 lead. On this next at-bat, he's going to get a breaking ball, and that is going to curve down and inside, and he's going to rocket a 3-run homer to right field to give the Heels the 5-1 lead. Then in the second game, it was Parks Harbor's game. All 3 of his home runs came off of different pitches. The first one is a curveball. Second one is a low slider, and the third one is a fastball right down the middle. But what was one thing that all of these at-bats had in common? In all 3 of them, Harbor had 2 strikes in the count. This was the first 3-homer game of Harbor's career and the first by a Tar Heel in 22 years. But when the game was on the line, it was catcher Luke Stevenson who stepped up to the plate and delivered. In Saturday's game, Stevenson hits a 3-run shot in the top of the 8th to put the Heels up 8-4 and clinch the series against Wake. Then, in yesterday's game, he secured the series sweep. The game is tied 10-10, and Stevenson barrels the go-ahead 3-run homer to make it 13-10. The trio had 19 of the 28 RBIs in the series and 10 of the 14 home runs. And this is what makes the Heels dangerous. Joshua?
Caroline, the Heels were whipping up a masterpiece at the plate, and the pitchers were serving up some strikes on the mound as well. Who were the pitchers who really stood out to you to contain Wake's offense?
Joshua, on Friday, Folger Boaz earned his first ACC win, striking out 5 in 5 2/3 innings pitched. Then on Sunday, Matthew Mateus earned his NCAA leading 11th win in his 2 innings pitched. Looks like those 2 were the main chefs in the kitchen this weekend.
3 W's were on the menu, and that's exactly what Scott Forbes ordered. Hopefully they can keep that same recipe going into this week. Thanks, Caroline.
The Diamond Heels have fallen into a bit of a pattern of dropping the first 2 games of ACC series. This year they lost their first 2 games against Miami, and the same thing happened this past weekend. But they snagged the last game of this series to save them from the sweep. Let's talk about the good and the bad from this series. I'm going to start with the bad of the first game. UNC started and ended poorly on the mound. Folger Boaz struggled in the first inning, giving up 6 earned runs, which was similar to the Miami series where he gave up 5 earned runs in the first 2 innings. In the first inning, he loaded the bases and gave up a grand slam from freshman Henry Ford, and then gave up a 2-run homer just a couple of at-bats later. This is just on a bad start on the mound for Boaz, already putting the Heels down 6-2. When the game is tied 11-11 in the bottom of the 8th, Dalton Pence throws a fastball down the middle and gives up the game-winning home run from Henry Ford once again, his 3rd homer of the game. Even though the Heels already lost the series, their resilience to come out on top in Game 3 shows there is no need to panic. And who stepped up once again for the Heels? None other than Casey Cook and Parks Harbor. Just like they did in the Wake Forest series, the Heels leaned on those bats. They combined for 7 RBIs in the 3rd game and helped the team get up 6-0 very quickly. UVA stormed back to get the score tied 6-6 with all the momentum on the Cavaliers' side. But Harbor stepped up to get the bats going in the 7th inning, and he has a 1-2 count, and he hits this solo homer toward the corner of right field to put them up 7-6 and shift the momentum back to the Heels' side. Hitting .374 and .345 respectively, Cook has 48 RBIs this season, and Harbor has 11 home runs. The lethal combination of consistency and power at the plate from these 2 guys helped the Heels get a win on the road and steal a game in Charlottesville. Joshua?
Caroline, big game coming up tomorrow as the Heels are set to face off against South Carolina in Charlotte. What do the Heels need to do to look out for in this duel of the Carolinas?
Joshua, South Carolina is coming off of a close win against 3rd-ranked Texas A&M. And their first baseman, Gavin Casas, is hitting .379 in his past 10 games. So I think UNC is going to have to watch out for him.
We will have to see who the real Carolina is tomorrow at 7 p.m. under the lights. Thanks, Caroline.
The difference in this Diamond Heels team compared to last year is the transfers and freshmen they've added to the roster, replacing some key players who left for the draft this past spring. These new faces might not hit as many flashy home runs as star player Vance Honeycutt, but they know how to get on base and drive in runners in scoring position. The focus of this team has always been Honeycutt. He's hitting .281 right now, so that's not too bad, but all of these transfers and freshmen, they're hitting better than him right now. The transfers who've stepped up are Parks Harbor, Anthony D'Onofrio, and Alex Madera. The player who has impacted the team the most has 100% been Parks Harbor. He transferred here from Georgia, and he's made an impact in every game since joining the Heels. He's hitting .345, racking up 31 RBIs and 11 home runs. D'Onofrio and Madera are hitting .303 and .290 respectively, combining for 44 RBIs. They've taken the place of Matt Horvath, who was drafted by the Baltimore Orioles, and he played in right field and in the infield last spring for the Heels. These transfers, they're not just phenomenal hitters, they're great at fielding too. Harbor, he has a .985 fielding percentage, and Madera is at .982. So they know how to snag a ball to end an inning. Now let's talk about the freshmen on this roster. Luke Stevenson is hitting .297 with a whopping 34 RBIs, taking the place of catcher Tomas Frick, who was drafted by the New York Yankees. And Gavin Gallagher has stepped in for Jackson Vanderbrake at times this season, hitting .373, the best batting average on the team. I think these 5 guys are going to keep stepping up for the Diamond Heels, especially against the Fighting Irish right here at the Bosch this weekend. Now, Ashley, I've missed being at the Bosch since they've been away for the past couple of weeks, so I know I'll be there later today. Am I going to see you there?
Caroline, I can't think of a better way to spend my weekend. Now, this team had some success sweeping Wake, but then they lost their momentum against Virginia and lost that top 10 spot. What do they need to change going into this Notre Dame weekend and looking forward to playing State?
I think the Heels need to focus on their pitching. Dalton Pence, he's been struggling to throw a changeup in recent games like we saw in the UVA series, And a lot of their pitchers are freshmen, so they just don't have as much experience in these high-pressure ACC games. So I think they need to fix those pitching issues before going into Coastal Carolina and NC State this coming week. Both of those teams, they're ranked in the top 25.
Well, let's hope they can make those adjustments. Thanks, Caroline.
The Fighting Irish wore the gold on their heads this weekend, but they didn't take home any gold. There must be some magic in Boshemer Stadium this season because the Diamond Heels are still undefeated at home, 23-0, setting a new school record of 27 straight wins at home, dating all the way back to last season. Once again, the Diamond Heels proved their ability to stay consistent throughout a series and deliver the sweep in front of their home crowd. The Heels have scored 10 or more runs in 13 of those 23 home wins. But let's take a look at some of their close home wins this season that have given them the confidence to keep rolling at the Bosch. In their third game of their series against the Pitt Panthers, it's tied 5-5 in the bottom of the 10th. Casey Cook is on first base, and in this at-bat, Anthony D'Onofrio, he has a full count. Pitt's catcher sets up low for the fastball that misses down the middle, and D'Onofrio rockets it to right field near the warning track. Cook is going to round third all the way from first to come home and score, ending the game in a walk-off for the Heels with a score of 6-5. In their second game of the Rutgers series, the game was back and forth throughout with the score at 7-6 in the bottom of the 8th. D'Onofrio gets on base with a double, and then a couple of at-bats later, Luke Stevenson hits a massive shot to right field to put the Heels up 9-6 for the eventual win. These crucial moments help them maintain their leads and rack up more W's at the Bosch, also leading to many series wins, including some series sweeps, putting them in a position to possibly host a regional if they keep this up. JJ?
Following the series sweep against the unlucky Irish, what do you think the Heels need to do against my hometown Chanticleers?
JJ, I probably sound like a broken record, but UNC still needs to focus on their pitching at the beginning and the end of games when it matters most. This weekend they pitched well, but it's still an issue for them. Coastal has 24 wins, but against unranked teams, but at the end of the day, W's matter, so the Heels still need to be cautious against them.
Let's hope the Heels can continue that insane home win streak on Tuesday. Thanks, Caroline.
The Diamond Heels once again lost their first two games of an ACC series on the road, but each of those first two games were close, showing the fight this UNC team has. In the bottom of the 9th of the first game, it's tied 8-8 with one out. Matt Poston, he's going to throw a fastball to State's Brandon Butterworth, but look at where the catcher's set up. He wants the ball at the bottom of the zone right at the batter's knees, but Poston, he misses his spot, and look at where Luke Stevenson is about to catch this pitch. Right at the letters of the batter's jersey, the highest point of the zone. Butterworth is not going to miss this crucial mistake, and he drives the ball way out to walk off for State 9-8. In their second game of the series, the Heels had a 4-1 lead up until the 7th inning, and ended up losing the game 5-4. During the third game, the Heels dominated the entire game, scoring 14 runs and holding NC State to only 3 runs the entire game. The Diamond Heels are usually known for their hitting, but their fielding is just as great. In the bottom of the 4th, Anthony D'Onofrio sprinted toward the middle of right field to make this insane catch to get the second out of the inning and keep their lead at 6-1. Then in the bottom of the 5th, there's 2 outs and a runner in scoring position on second for State. Casey Cook extends his body toward the left field line to make this phenomenal catch to also keep their lead at 6-1. Even though they dropped this series, as I said a couple weeks ago, there's no need to panic because the Heels always know how to bounce back in their last game of an away series. Caroline?
Well, Caroline, with that win on Saturday, the Diamond Heels clinched a spot in the ACC tournament, even though they have a lot of games left. What do they need to do to stay atop the ACC standings?
Caroline, they need to get back to their dominant play and perform better on the mound. They've dropped 3 of their past 4 games, and they have some big ACC series coming up, like Virginia Tech this weekend, which is 3rd in the Coastal Division behind UNC and Duke.
Well, we'll have to see if the Heels can get back to their dominant play at the Bosch tomorrow against Gardner-Webb. Thanks, Caroline.
The Diamond Heels won yet another series at the Bosch. It wasn't with their usual flash of monster home runs. They did a great job of getting players on base, and then those players capitalized by stealing bases to get into scoring position. The Heels took advantage of the Hokies catcher making some questionable throws. In Game 1, Parks Harbor stole second in the bottom of the 5th after an overthrown ball from the catcher. Then, a couple of at-bats later, he scored to make it 7-0 after Alex Madera was walked with the bases loaded. Then, in Game 2, Vance Honeycutt stole second, standing up. Then, standing up once again, he stole third in the bottom of the 1st inning. Now, moving to the bottom of the 7th. Honeycutt stole second again as the catcher threw the ball at Honeycutt rather than the second baseman for Virginia Tech. He then scored in the bottom of the 7th to put them up 6-1. Those stolen bases were the theme of the first 2 games. On Sunday, however, they did not secure the sweep because they didn't get the clutch hits they typically do during those big late game moments. The Hokies are leading 4-3 in the bottom of the 9th. And Jackson Vanderbrake, he's on first, pinch running for Parks Harbor with no outs. After that, Anthony D'Onofrio gets out with this infield hit. Then Alberto Osuna hits a high fly ball to left center field that is caught for an out. And Luke Stevenson, he strikes out at the plate, ending the game with the Hokies dub 4-3. But this was only their second home loss of the season at the Bosch, so the Heels still have a lot to be excited about for the rest of their season. Caroline?
Caroline, do you think the baseball team has what it takes to host another super regional like they did in 2022?
Caroline, I think they do. The Heels have some winnable non-conference games coming up, but as much as UNC fans don't want to hear this, I think their biggest challenge is going to be 6th-ranked Duke in a couple weeks. Duke has a 14-10 record in conference, though, so I think the Heels could do well in that series and position themselves to host that super regional.
Thanks, Caroline. I hope Harbor and Honeycutt can carry this team.